It is 5 o'clock, and we welcome everybody to the Nat U Hill Room. Today is Tuesday, February 11th, 2025, and this is our regular session meeting. I would like to note for the record that we have council members present, Henry, Iverson, of course myself, Decker, Wiltz, and Feidel. All right, welcome everybody, and now if you are able to stand with me, please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, looking at what we have on our agenda in front of us, would anybody like to make some amendments to tonight's agenda? And I got a couple of notes here for our agenda. We are going to, for item number 14, which is the Health Department, we're going to table that discussion to February 25th agenda. And if we are also going to add item 8D, Resolution 2025-11, supporting the BEAD BEAD grant applicants and the expansion of broadband services throughout Monroe County. And that is all I see. Is there any other amendments to tonight's agenda? No? Okay, seeing none. For the presiding officer, if we are okay, I would like to approve that without any objections. All right, seeing none, so ordered. All right. And then for all of us to go ahead and approve tonight's agenda, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Agenda has been adopted. All right. We are now going to move on to item number 4, which is public comment. For those of you that are in the audience here, if you would like to make public comment, this is your time to talk about items that are not on agenda. If you are here, you can come into the Nat U Hill Room at the lectern here and speak for about 3 minutes. Or if you are on our Teams app, you can signify by raising your hand on Teams. And do we have any takers here in the Nat U Hill Room? Seeing none. Do we have any on Teams? All right, seeing that there is none, we will move right along with our agenda. Next up, we have department updates. Usually department updates are for 10 minutes for each department to provide updates. So if there are any updates that are to be had by anybody here in the room, please come to the lectern or come to the table, or you can raise your hand via Teams. Seeing anybody? Going once, going twice. Yay, moving on. All right, now we are moving on to item number 6, which is the consent agenda items.
Council, I move to approve the following consent agenda items for February the 11th. A, the Parks and Recreation Department request in Fund 1000-0803, General Fund Parks and Recreation to create line 45350, infrastructure improvements, and simultaneously approve a category transfer of $39,000 from the supplies category to the capital category. B, the Health Department requests in Fund 8104-9625, Public Health Emergency Preparedness to create line 40001, Equipment, and simultaneously approve a category transfer of $3,111 from the Personnel category to the Services category, $3,284 from the Personnel category to the Capital category, and $1,888.57 from the Supplies category to the Capital category. C, the Employee Services Department requests in Fund 1000-0309, General Fund Employee Services, for the creation of line 10088, Payroll Assistance, Attendance, and Benefits. And finally, D, the January 14th and January 28th Council meeting summary minutes and the January 28th Council executive session minutes.
Second.
Thank you. We got a motion and a second. Are there any questions or comments from council? Looking to my right, seeing none. Looking to my left, seeing none. All right. Are there any members of the public that would like to come up and speak on this consent agenda item? Please, again, come to the Nat U Hill Room, to the podium, or raise your hand via Teams. And seeing none, since we all are here, at least 6 of us are here, we can go ahead and approve this by voice vote. Okay? All right. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda items signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. All right. Motion has been adopted. Next up, we are moving on to item number 7, which is from the Board of Commissioners.
Council, I move to approve the Board of Commissioners' request in Fund 1237-0000 opioid restricted for an additional appropriation of $730,913.16 in the services category.
Second.
All right. Got a motion and a second. And looking over to the table to Miss Molly Turner King.
So this appropriation should sound slightly familiar because we did it at the end of last year. What this does is the Opioid Settlement Advisory Board met on November 15th and made recommendations on the applications they received for community projects. Thereafter, the commissioners approved those recommendations. We got contracts executed, but we could not get the funds in the organization's hands before the end of the year, so now we're appropriating into this year.
So essentially just some housekeeping items. Okay, got it. All right. Looking to my right here for any questions. Councilmember Iverson.
I just want to take a quick moment and highlight the auditor's quick action on this, as it came clear that some of our local agencies were going to be impacted by some of the federal funding freezes. As we know, a lot of agencies were worried that they were going to have enough funding to cover their operational expenses and started getting in touch with folks. And that's where we were really happy to hear that the auditor was able to bring this to us so quickly. And thank you all for being expeditious on this.
I left for any? Okay. All right. Yeah, and I would just like to say that, yes, with all the cuts and the slashes that we see, I know that we talked last time in depth about other departments and other folks being able to get used to these funds, and definitely would like to see that as well. And also dare to dream one day that maybe county and city could also put forth our opioid settlement funds together. It's a dare to dream, but hopefully your dream can come true. All right. Anything else? Nope. Okay. Do we have anybody that would like to make public comment on this? Please come forward to the lectern here in the Nat U Hill Room, or raise your hand via Teams. None? All right. May we please have a roll call vote?
Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Counselor Henry?
Yes.
Counselor Feidel?
Yes.
Counselor Crossley?
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz?
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
Thank you, and we'll move on to item B.
Council, I move to approve the Board of Commissioners' request in Fund 1238-000 opioid unrestricted for an additional appropriation of $279,895.84 in the services category.
Second.
Thank you. And Turner King.
This is the same situation. The opioid funds are divided into restricted and unrestricted, and so this is appropriating the unrestricted category.
Thank you. Any comments looking at my left here? To my right? None? All right. Anybody that would like to make public comment on this, please come forward to the Nat U Hill Room here to the lectern, or raise your hand via Teams. And seeing none, may we please have a roll call vote on this item?
Counselor Henry?
Yes.
Counselor Feidel?
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz?
Yes.
Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Counselor Crossley?
Yes.
Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
Thank you. Now we will move on to item number 8 from the legal department.
Council, I move to open for discussion Resolution 2025-05 opposing Indiana Senate Bill 1.
Second.
Motion and second. Also looking at Miss Molly Turner King today. There's a lot.
So this is a reworking of the draft from the meeting on the 11th opposing Senate Bill 1. Do you want me to read the entire resolution? Okay. The resolution is in its packet in its entirety. What I will point out is specifically the 5th whereas clause references if enacted, the proposals that have garnered the most attention would have a significant negative impact on local municipal taxing units exceeding $2 billion, including reducing Monroe County tax revenues by at least an estimated $25 million. I'm not sure if those numbers are still accurate because this bill, specifically Senate Bill 1, went in front of committee today and there was, I think, 93 pages of amendments. So if you are still considering this resolution tonight, I would recommend potentially removing the specificity of those numbers because I'm not sure it's still accurate.
Okay. I'm looking, since this is a discussion, I'm gonna start over here to my left.
Thanks.
Councilor Wiltz.
I know we received information today on the amendments. I haven't had a chance really to even familiarize myself. I know that probably they are good amendments in that they help local government, but I think I would feel more comfortable in general waiting until we were more familiar with what exactly it was we were opposing. So that's just my 2 cents on this.
Anybody else?
I tend to concur.
Okay. Councilor Deckard?
Thank you very much. I've spoken pretty passionately about this one in the past, and I'll be passionately parsing through these amendments to figure out what this means. And I appreciate the fact that we are members of the Indiana Association of Counties and that other organizations like AIM that works with our municipality brothers and sisters, as well as the school corporations, have been very passionate in their own discussions about this, because I think that that is what's needed. I do agree that we need to hold this so that hopefully we understand it better, but not only that, but the bill only continues to improve. I think relief for property taxpayers is a very important thing, but we also have to fund all of our needs, all of our operations, and I'm hopeful that 2 things can meet when the General Assembly works this through. The additional thing I'll say is I have the opportunity to serve as the chair of the Legislative Council with the Bloomington Chamber of Commerce, and the cool thing about that body is that on certain Friday mornings, a bipartisan team of our delegation of legislators come in and they hear concerns. They heard certainly concerns in the last meeting, both sides of the aisle from the legislation. And I hope that that kind of thing happening in every community continues to prevail upon this as we learn more about what's here and what is not here any longer. Thank you.
Councilor Henry?
Thank you, Madam President. I agree with a lot of the sentiments that have been shared on the resolution. It's a long session. I mean, it is actually called a long session. So I imagine as we see the amendments move through, hopefully they are improvements on the original notion. But as we did learn last week at AIC, Governor Braun has made it clear that he wants us to prove it, and prove the harm of his proposed cuts and what that really means for our communities, our services. And so, we need a little time to slow roll this a little bit to get the language right, but I would not anticipate it improving in such a way that we would not be making a resolution about it. So thank you again to staff for keeping up with these updates as they come in from session up to the hour. I appreciate it. Thank you.
So what I'll say about this, I think that hasn't been said yet, is this is important for folks to understand that the proposed cuts not only impact what the county councils can do across the state in terms of property tax, but also our maximum growth quotient, and also what seniors are going to be experiencing in every single Indiana county. The changes to this bill are substantial. from this morning, and I would really encourage folks at home to read Kate Sharon and Whitney Downard's article in the Indiana Business Journal that was published just today. It's a good summation of kind of where things are, but I agree with my colleagues. This is a moving target, and when you're dealing with these big budgets at counties and what senior citizens are going through in these different counties, you better hit bullseye.
Yeah. And the only thing that I would add to this is, yes, I do agree with Councilor Wiltz that I think we need to all have a chance to dive into it, because I would also like to commend all of us for a couple of weeks ago really looking at what the state legislation was trying to do and continues to do, and trying to really oppose this as much as possible. And I would love to welcome Governor Braun to either come here or we can go to him and we can tell him how we can also prove how this will ultimately affect a lot of different things. It's a cascading effect. So yes, so I definitely, all the breaking news that has continued to come forth here, I would like to be able to dive a little bit more deeper into it, because I do understand from seeing some of the emails that have come through, there's a synopsis of things that might appear palatable to us here in county government that I would really like to go into further, but we are still keeping an eye on, the state legislation and their long session and what they continue to do. So if anybody is watching, I know there are folks that are now working in government affairs, tell them that we're keeping an eye on them too. So without further ado, do I have a motion? I'd love to entertain a motion. Councilor Iverson.
Council, I move to table this discussion to this council's February 25th meeting.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right. Now, if we have anybody that would like to make public comment, please come forward to the lectern here in Nat U Hill Room or raise your hand via Teams. Seeing none, may we please we can vote on this. Voice vote. All right. All those in favor of tabling this to the February 25th meeting signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. All right, motion carries. Thank you. And again, we're still watching. All right, now we are moving on to almost said number B.
Council, I move to approve Resolution 2025-08, approving a contract with Financial Solutions Group.
Second.
Got a motion and a second, and still keeping up with Molly Turner King.
This resolution is approving a contract with FSG. The contract is a little bit different than last year's contract, but both the resolution and the contract are included in the packet. The main difference is we expanded it from a 1-year contract to a 2-year contract. It lists out FSG's deliverables, which include attending council meetings and LTF meetings, providing guidance on changing legislation, the 3-year sustainability report. They're kind of watching annexation, assisting with proposed payroll increases, some of the stuff that they've done last year with a little bit more detail and requests to kind of watch what the state's doing.
Extremely helpful. Okay. All right. And any comments from council members? Looking to my right, looking to my left. Councilor Wiltz?
Yes.
Okay.
You know what, never mind. I don't want to open that can of worms. I'm going to keep my closed. Thank you.
To open them. All right. I'll go to Councilor Iverson and maybe come back. All right, Councilor Iverson.
So in today's packet, we see the list of the scope of services. I think this adheres to conversations we've had previously. I think this is the right direction that we want to move forward to make sure that we're on the right footing given some of the fiscal headwinds that we're facing. This is the question I think we asked the last time this came before us, but given the the breadth of scope of services in this contract, is FSG able to meet this scope of service given the fact that they are also entering into contracts with other counties across the state?
The contract was provided to FSG and they approved it, so I think they're saying yes, they can.
Excellent.
Anybody else? All right. All right, now we will move on to public comment. If there are any public comment takers on this issue, please come forward to the Nat U Hill, come forward in the Nat U Hill room or raise your hand via Teams. And none, we will move on with the roll call vote.
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor Henry,
Yes.
Counselor Feidel,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
And before moving on to the next agenda item, the next step is that I'm going to add this to the commissioners meeting, and then we have FSG slated to appear at the LTF meeting on the 21st and at full council on the 25th.
And that meeting is at 2 o'clock on the 21st here in the Nat U Hill room. So lots to discuss and looking forward to having that conversation. Thank you. Now we will move on to item C.
Council, I move to open for discussion and approval, Resolution 2025-04, updating the personnel administrator job title in council documents.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second.
So on November 26th, the council approved an amendment to the salary ordinance, which changed the title of the personnel administrator to HR director. The title personnel administrator has been used in several council resolutions, the PAC guidelines, KSA, and instead of going back and trying to find each resolution that references the personal administrator, I wrote this resolution for consideration, which just does it in one fair swoop and says anytime personal administrator is used, it is now replaced with HR director. It's housekeeping and clarity.
Seems pretty simple, but maybe my colleagues have questions or comments. So looking to my left. It's okay. Like, all right, this is a good bunch here. All right. So seeing that there are no comments from us, maybe there are comments from the public. If you do have a comment, please come forward to the lectern here in the Nat U Hill room or raise your hand via Teams. And seeing none, we will move on to a roll call vote.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Henry,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Feidel.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
Right. And this is the part of the agenda where we came to amend it. So we are moving to item 8D.
Council, I move to open for discussion and approval, Resolution 2025-11, supporting the Broadband Equity, Access, and Deployment, or BEAD, grant applications, and the expansion of broadband services throughout Monroe County.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. And looking over to Ms. King.
This was a resolution that was recently added, so it is not in the packet, so I have it displayed it on the screen, and I think I'm going to read this one. So it reads, Resolution 2025-11, resolution supporting BEAD grant applicants and the expansion of broadband services throughout Monroe County. Whereas the Broadband Equity, Access, and Deployment Program is a federal grant program that aims to provide all Americans internet access by funding partnerships between states, communities, and stakeholders to build infrastructure in areas where it is needed and to increase an adoption of high-speed internet. And whereas Indiana was awarded $868 million in BEAD funds to ensure every Indiana resident has broadband access, prioritizing underserved locations that have no internet access or underserved locations that have insufficient internet access to meet their needs. And whereas the Indiana Broadband Office is receiving grant proposals from broadband service providers to expand and improve the availability of reliable internet within Monroe County. And Whereas local government leaders may provide broadband service providers letters of support for projects that align with the community's goals so that the letters may be included with the service provider's grant application. And whereas the Monroe County Council recognizes that reliable broadband access is an essential for Monroe County residents as the availability of such fosters economic growth, including the development and continuation of economic opportunities and partnerships, and decreases educational and public health barriers, resulting in an increased quality of life of all Monroe County residents. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Monroe County Council wishes to express its support for the BEAD program, the expansion of broadband services throughout Monroe County, and letters of support provided to Comcast, AT&T, and Mainstream Fiber Networks, who are applying for BEAD funding to provide Monroe County residents this essential service. Both council and commissioners were approached by Comcast, AT&T, and Mainstream Fiber asking for letters of support for their applications, and this resolution just says that you support the signing of those 3 letters with Monroe County support.
And look into council. And start over here on my right, Mr. Henry.
Thank you, Madam President. I am thrilled that we are pursuing this resolution in support of these vendors that are looking to bring this service to our community and build that backbone into our rural spaces to get to broadband. I mean, many of us know that we have friends and neighbors in the 4 corners of the county that are still on dial-up service and DSL to try to get to meetings like our Zoom meeting. They don't have enough pipe to log in and get here. This is a tremendous opportunity. I did have a chance to speak with some of the vendors who approached us over their period here to get their letters together, and I'm pleased that we're in support of any vendor that really has asked for that through this resolution. But for the public's knowledge, the National Telecommunications and Infrastructure Administration out of the U.S. Department of Commerce is one that provided that funding to the state. And it is a legacy of the previous presidential administration, the Biden administration, that understands that this is a public good to get rural access. It's no different than some of the great infrastructure projects in our country's history. And the ability for us to tap into that $868 million and bring rural broadband into the county is one of the good news stories to start off the year. So I'm very much excited about the support for this resolution. Thank you.
Councilor Iverson.
I certainly hear from constituents in the 1st District that affordability and access is a problem when it comes to broadband. My question, though, is what are the next steps? So we have these letters of support going before folks. What's kind of the next step before residents in the 1st District can have access to affordable broadband services?
I'm not sure the next step, because what would happen is that the Indiana Broadband Office is going to begin evaluating the grant applications. In essence, what happens is if there is a letter of support, it gave the provider extra points on their grant application. And once IBO starts awarding it, I imagine that providers will then begin implementation. I just don't know what that timeline looks like.
And do we know that the funding that Councilmember Henry was just talking about is still available?
I haven't heard otherwise.
Not reassuring, but that's the best we
what I
have,
got.
I guess, right? All right, thanks.
Councilor Decker.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I had an opportunity to sit in on the meetings with Commissioner Thomas for both Mainstream and AT&T and to hear a little bit more details about their plan. And one thing that is awesome about this is that for us, this is a win-win. In the state will review the applications of all 3 vendors, and in tandem with the other applications being made, they'll determine the feasibility, what can be done, and which of those dollars can be rewarded. And all that they're truly looking for is that we're not screaming and running and saying we don't want those things for our constituents. As has been said here tonight, this is huge for individuals. And I also want to say last year, through ARPA dollars, federal dollars coming down into the community from the Biden administration, we were able to do a lot. If you go up on literally 11th Street, you will see the Community Kitchen Express. And that's truly how dollars should be coming into programs to benefit and to help us. I don't know, given the news, if this program is the last such iteration of those types of things. And so we have got to jump on. I'm glad that the commissioners embrace that process, and I hope that we will continue to always have the opportunity to embrace grant processes. But I'm got my eye to the news. But this is a huge deal, and if anyone has ever taken a trip to Evansville on a very serious work call, or you have gone to visit our late friend, Councilor Munson, you know that there are areas of our county for which you just don't have those conversations. This could start to reverse some of that for many people that we love and serve. Thank you.
Councilor Wiltz.
Yes, thanks. So I was not in on the conversations, and so I just have a couple of questions. I find this like an amazing opportunity that, fingers crossed, because we've had a lot of conversations over the years on how can we extend broadband access. I assume, are there other service providers in our area besides the named ones in this resolution?
There might be. The reason that those 3 entities were named was because those are the 3 that reached out and requested a letter of support.
Is it possible that out?
The deadline for applications is tomorrow.
Okay.
I would add that my understanding is there were, I was in the neighborhood of 50 to 60 eligible vendors that could compete in the pool. And so, yeah, as Mr.
Statewide?
Statewide, yeah. So, and those could include other providers, as I understand it. But as Ms. Turner King mentioned, I mean, there could always be a last minute, but I imagine we would have heard from now.
Yeah. Okay. May I ask another question?
Go ahead.
Do any of the, so we don't have like a copy of whatever letter would be sent. Are they identical?
I have a copy of the mainstream letter that I can provide. Comcast prepared its own letter, and I just got it at 4:30ish today.
Okay. That's, so, will you be seeing then the 3rd letter as well before it goes?
I think the AT&T already submitted their application, but I am trying to obtain a copy of that letter.
I just I hope I can trust that there isn't any implied commitment on our part in providing support.
This question was asked.
I'm sure it was.
On our,
Thanks.
well,
Yeah.
no, I asked that for that very reason. Does this obligate us to anything? We've had past opportunities where people said, we'll do all this, but on the back end, and the vendors said no, that there was not the obligation. These are dollars literally flowing down. Some of why I say the win-win, and the state helps to determine what might be eligible, what might not, and where they might cross over some of these services.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I had a feeling I could trust that somebody else had asked the question.
Councilor Henry.
Madam President, I do have a friendly amendment to the resolution in the second whereas clause. Whereas is misspelled. If we can correct that to include the E.
Okay.
Corrected.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. So wasn't involved in any of the other meetings that related to this, but I'm wondering about the timeline of how it will all play out.
Actually, just kind of back up as a point of order, since we did have a motion in a second, we need to clarify that first. So we'll get to you just here in a second. So we have a motion in a second, and any discussions on that? It's pretty simple. All right. All those that are in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? All right, ayes have it. All right, go ahead, Councilor Fido.
So I wanted to know about the timeline of how this all may play out. When may constituents and our residents look forward to having service like this in their areas that they may not have?
I was told outside 4 years. Yeah, so it's a little bit of a process with that.
Wiltz.
Yet another question.
Go
Thank you. So last year, there was a testing situation that we participated in where the idea was to kind of verify our speed of connection. Was that related to this program?
I believe it was, yes.
Cool. And is there an indication that this program is prioritizing underserved areas? We've had in our community extensive broadband or other types of services added where they're not necessarily needed because of an absence of service. And I just want to find out if this is different.
I see Ms. Turner King looked like she had an answer. Maybe. Sorry.
I
Somebody.
don't know this for certain, but my understanding is that this is going to prioritize, it's going to be a couple phases. The first phase is going to prioritize people who have no service, and then there's going to be a phase where they're going to prioritize people who are underserved. That's my understanding of how that is going to work. So this first round of grants are going to be for essentially dead areas, and then the next round of grants is going to be for the semi-dead areas.
Zombie areas.
One of the things I will say when it impressed me, and I'm always skeptical on these things, but the map area was fairly massive in different portions and parts. Mainstream a little bit less, but particularly the Comcast map was a dominant portion of that portion of the county that is just dead as far as activity. So I'm cautiously optimistic that means some good coverage.
Yeah, Madam President, I would just add, as I understood some of the presentations, the value of the grant is it incentivizes private sector to build in places they wouldn't otherwise. And so these are, when we think of Indian Creek and parts of Van Buren and Richmond Bean Blossom, these are very rugged rural areas that this is the incentive for it. So that was what was exciting when I heard the presentations. So, yeah.
Great, thank you.
All right. All right, and so just for clarification, once this resolution is passed, commissioners do what with this? This is just us showing support and then,
It's showing support that you're signing on to those letters.
got it, okay. Yeah. All right, any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we will go ahead and move on to the public. If there are any folks that are out there that would like to make a public comment about this, please come forward to the Nat U Hill room or raise your hand via Teams. And seeing there are none, may we please have a roll call vote?
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Henry,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor Feidel.
Yes.
Motion passed, unanimous.
All right, thank you. We are next up on item number 9, which is the Public Defender's Office.
Council, I move to approve the Public Defender's request to approve the System Navigator job description and simultaneously amend the 2025 salary ordinance to remove lines 13016 and 13017 investigator from Fund 9160-0000 System Navigator Grant and Fund 1000-0271 General Fund Public Defender and create lines 13038 and 13039 System Navigator in Funds 9160-0000 System Navigator Grant and Fund 1000-0271 General Fund Public Defender at 40 hours, Civ Pol D, not exempt, listed as outliers with an effective date of December 15th, 2024.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. And I see we have Mr. Hunt and Heather Stuffle. Hi. Would you all like to go ahead? You should just pull it down and it should automatically start going when you start talking. Nope.
No, not yet.
Maybe bring it a little closer. Nope.
Hang on it.
One moment. Looks like
Help is coming.
help is on the way. I see green. Green is good.
How about now? Okay.
Yeah.
Technology is not my forte. Madam Chairperson and members of the council, my name is Michael Hunt. I'm the public defender for Monroe County, and this is Heather Stuffle, my executive assistant. I'm going to direct my initial comments to all of our requests here because it kind of ties in and covers everything. As well, some of you weren't here last year, and we had a couple of things happen. One is we had a very experienced investigator retire, which took a lot of knowledge and office memory, I guess, with her. At the same time, the grant for the system navigators, we were told by the state that that would be changed this year, and the county would be reimbursed, but only 50% of the salaries. In addition to that, we had a shortfall in our supplemental fund, which we explained to the council, and the council at that time agreed to move the system navigators into the general fund. So that's where we are. With all those things happening, we decided to look at the jobs and try to hire some new people and incorporate the office so that the functionality of what we do was better. We think we've tried to do that by putting certain people who have been there in charge of other people there. That caused us to rewrite job descriptions, which we did with the help of Ms. Turner King. We then went to, took those to PAC, which then sent them to WIS. WIS has then returned them to PAC, and we went to PAC, I think it was last week, and they approved what we did. I was generally happy with WIS's agreement and PAC recommending that we go ahead with this plan. The one I was a little perturbed about was the executive assistant, and I'll get into that at a later time. They didn't approve what we asked for. But in general, we think this will improve the efficiency and the knowledge that we need from the investigators, the system navigators, so it's better coordinated so we can get their information to the attorneys who then use it. And having said that, I will answer any questions that you may have.
You look into, am I right? Any, no? What say you? All right.
So first of all, thank you for being here. I know the process can be a little lengthy. I'm glad we got you here to council pretty quickly, though. I will note for the public that we've made some changes to how PAC items are reflected in your packet. So not only do you get what WIS has said about this item, which is on page 58, but there's also a full fiscal impact on page 63. There's also an org chart on page 66, and another administrative item that we adopted for council as ease is we have now removed the option for PAC to have a maybe vote. Or a middle vote. We are now voting either yes or no on a PAC item, and that form is on page 67. So whenever an item comes from PAC to the council, you're going to see these documents that is going to help aid in the decision making because we know that transparency is important, and we know that these jobs are important, and we've got to keep that institutional knowledge there for retention. So I just wanted to make those points real quick.
And looking to my left, Councilor Decker.
I appreciate the transparency on that process. I think that's vexed us for some time, and I appreciate you as chair trying to figure that out. I do have a quick question. I'm trying to recall this. We began this, which was a win-win at the time because it was the dollars and that. We began this, was that 3 years ago, or is it now 4 years ago?
System navigators?
Yeah. roughly? I'm sorry to put you on the spot.
So we actually hired our first person, I believe it was December of 2020.
Okay.
So the grant started late 2020.
And it's working well.
It is.
And that was kind of what the hunch we had back then.
Yeah, I think so. Technically, when you talk to the Public Defender Council, who the grant comes through, they still consider it a pilot program. So because not all counties have it. So they're still taking data that we send to them and seeing if in fact, having these system navigators help the results mostly in children in need of services cases. And I would tell you that the attorneys in my office that I talk to are really enthusiastic over the help and the information they get from these people. They're really into helping the people in those cases, which gets rather involved and has a lot of meetings and things.
I had one quick question. This is system navigators. That's a position that almost sort of is very similar to a position in the prosecutor's office. Is that right? No?
I don't know.
Okay,
Not that I
maybe
know.
not. I'm thinking of something else. Okay.
I don't think so because the system navigators deals with chins and TPR cases, which is not a kind of case that the prosecutor's office deals with.
Okay, got it. Okay, thank you. And then the other thing, I guess, to clarify, what is really happening here is because WIS approved this as a Comet D, and it was originally a Civ Pol D position, but we already have people that are already in the system navigator's position right now. So technically, this move would almost decrease people that are already in there. However, from my understanding is, and I'm looking over to our table here just to clarify this, from my understanding, because they are still there, they're all basically will be grandfathered in, and then once those positions become vacant, once they are filled, then the people that will come after will be a Comet D. Is that correct?
That is the precedent that we have used.
Got it. Okay.
That's one of the I guess, minor disagreements I had with WIS in this classification because, yes, our people there have experience and they're great. And if they leave, then it's going to downgrade that and it will be harder for us to hire people. But we like it the way it is now.
Okay. So it's working for you now.
Absolutely.
Just have the disagreement of that, and you think that it'll be was it hard to fill initially?
Wasn't that hard, and the Public Defender Council helped us out because they knew some people that worked there, and these people had experience, not necessarily doing that exactly, but in the field of children in need of services and DCS and those kind of things. So that was good. We got experienced people. It'll be a little harder to fill when they leave.
Okay. All right. Questions or comments? All right. Seeing none, we'll move on to public comment. If you have any remarks on this, please come forward to the Nat U Hill room to the lectern here or raise your hand via Teams. All right. Seeing none, may we please have a roll call vote?
Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Counselor Crossley?
Yes.
Counselor Feidel?
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz?
Yes.
Counselor Henry?
Yes.
Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
Now we will move on to item B.
Council, I move to approve the public defender's request to approve the senior investigator and senior paralegal job descriptions and simultaneously amend the 2025 salary ordinance in Fund 1000-0271, General Fund Public Defender, to create line 13040, senior investigator, 40 hours, Civ Pol E, non-exempt, and remove lines 10065 investigator and to amend the 2025 salary ordinance in Fund 1200-0000 Public Defender Supplemental to create line 13041 senior paralegal, 40 hours, Pat A, non-exempt, and remove line 13028 paralegal with an effective date of February 9th, 2025.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second. All right, go ahead.
This is just what I already described. This is part of the reorganization and losing our, I don't know, she'd been there 20 years, I think, as an investigator, and losing her and then hiring people that aren't that experienced. We thought we needed to reorganize and make this senior investigator and the senior investigator to help coordinate that team. The senior paralegal, we hired someone with some experience and some tech experience, which we desperately need to help with all the body cams and all the security footage and stuff. So we reorganized that and rewrote the job descriptions, and that's where we are.
All right. And looking over to Councilor Iverson, since you are with PAC, do you have anything to add to
I would
it?
repeat that what I said earlier is that for transparency purposes, all of the documents are in today's packet, so you can refer to those, which includes WIS's recommendation, their memo, as well as the fiscal impact, the org chart, which again, I always find helpful on page 66, and then also the PAC recommendation. I will just mention, looking at the org chart, it clearly exemplifies what you were talking about. It's a very clean reporting structure, and it's not overburdened. I think this is a great move.
Looking to my left here. Anybody? All right. All right. If anybody, we'll move on to public comment. If you have public comment on this item, please come forward to the Nat U Hill room or raise your hand via Teams. And may we please have a roll call vote?
Counselor Feidel? Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Counselor Henry?
Yes.
Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz?
Yes.
Counselor Crossley?
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
All right. Thank you for that. Now we will move on to item C.
Council, I move to approve the public defender's request to update the executive assistant, investigator, and paralegal job descriptions.
Second.
This is simply what we're talking about. We redid the job descriptions, sent them to WIS, went to PAC, and it's all part of the reorganization. That's it.
Simple here. All right. Looking to my colleagues for any questions or comments. All right. Seeing none, this is the time we'll also move forward to public comment on this item. If you have any public comment, please come forward to the lectern here in the Nat U Hill room or raise your hand via Teams. And seeing none, we will move on to roll call vote.
Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz?
Yes.
Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Counselor Crossley?
Yes.
Counselor Henry?
Yes.
Counselor Feidel?
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now we will move on to, as we switch seats here, and I see we got some people that are coming out from the hallway into the room here. We will move on to item number 10.
Council, I move to approve the court's request to update the court administrator and court bailiff part-time job descriptions.
Second.
All right. I see we have Judge Dekoff and Ms. Abraham. Hello, welcome.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing us to be here and to address you. I'm going to just give you a brief history because these are obviously quite a few job descriptions we're bringing to you as to how that happened. And then, quite frankly, I'm going to let Lisa talk more about them because she understands the designations much better than I do. Some of them I think belong in a Star Wars movie. But so if I always get messed up when I try to get to the designations. Back last year, FSLA was looking at changing some of the salary guidelines. And we were asked at that time to start looking at the official court reporters because of that it might change their classification and their salary. We were in the process of doing that when the FSLA, when that was no longer going to be required at that time by FSLA, but by that time we had started the process. When we did that, we noted that we had not looked at any of these job descriptions since 2005. And since that time, obviously, there have been changes in the way that the courts operate and the way that we do different processings, et cetera. So we went to PAC, we got permission to do that and to then send just revised descriptions to WIS. And we also had discussions at around the time about the budget hearings that these were not going to be done in time for the budget hearings because there were so many. We were also given then authorization to keep working on these with the county attorney's office so that we could send them and then send them to WIS. And again, we appreciate that. And we did that. We got them back. We went to PAC last week and got on their agenda tonight. So we appreciate that, but that's how we got to be here. I wanted to explain that to you since we are coming at this time of year now. And then I'm going to turn it over to Lisa because, like I said, she understands she will sound much more intelligent about the classifications.
Okay, the first one that I have is just to update the 2 job descriptions. There's no change in any classifications. Since we were doing all of the job descriptions, I want to get them updated again. It's been 20 years since they've been done. So I'm just asking for the changes to be approved.
Okay. All right, thank you for that. And looking at the PAC chair for any comments about this.
This is the job description portion, so this one's pretty straightforward. The next item is is kind of the meat of the all the different updating the job descriptions and all the other things. So.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, I have no questions at this point.
Okay. And any other questions or comments from council? Okay. All right, moving on. If you don't, then we'll move on to the public portion or public comment portion of this. If you have a public comment on this item, please come forward to the Nat U Hill room or at the lectern, or raise your hand via Teams. Seeing none, I would like to state for the record, I do see that Councilor Marty Hawk is online via Teams too. So just wanted to put that out there that she's attending virtually. All right. May we please go ahead and have a roll call vote?
Counselor Henry?
Yes.
Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz?
Yes.
Counselor Crossley?
Yes.
Counselor Feidel?
Yes.
Counselor Hawk?
I don't think I can vote because I can't make the video come on.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Motion passed, unanimous.
Thank you. Now we will move on to item B.
Council, I move to approve the court's request to update the job descriptions and simultaneously amend the 2025 salary ordinance as laid out on the meeting agenda with an effective February 9th, 2025 date.
Second.
Go ahead.
I'll wait for Peter to read all those.
I'm looking over at staff. I don't think you want me to do that.
Okay. Okay, these are the job descriptions that we updated for associate court reporters, floating court reporters, official court reporters, bailiffs, in my court administration office. Again, none of these have been updated for the 20 years. So we did do the updates. We met with Molly Turner King and Kim Schell and went through all of and then it was submitted to WIS with a positive recommendation through all of this. And we met with Counselor Iverson and Wiltz too on this last week.
All right. Nice teamwork, liaisons. Awesome. All right. Any comments or questions? Counselor Iverson?
Let me kick this off, and I would ask, can we project the org chart onto the screen? That's page 89 of today's packet. Just as a clarifying note before we launch into things, the WIS memo is on page 68 for all of these job descriptions, and there's quite a bit here. The fiscal note for all the fiscal note for all of these is on page 78, and then the subsequent pages are for the different positions. Page 89 is the org chart, and page 90 is the PAC agenda. You'll see here the org chart. If a position is highlighted in pink, that means that that's part of today's agenda items. Do I have that correct? I think.
Yes.
Can we zoom in for my old eyes? Yeah, so you can see this is a massive kind of department-wide request. This is a lot of the positions in your department. I will also, while we're looking at all of these, just point out that the total fiscal impact of this is $139,196. So this is a major move in this department. So again, I'm pulling that number off of page 78, and I want to note that we discussed this quite a bit at PAC. I don't want to rehash that conversation other than to note I think we had a really healthy conversation about the way that WIS reviews things and about how we handle things here in Monroe County, and the actual PAC vote was a dual vote to approve most of the positions, but then there was one that was we wanted to have more information conveyed. I'll leave it there, and then I think we'll maybe talk a little bit more about that.
Okay, sounds fair. All right, any other questions or comments about this item?
I do have
Councilor
a clarifying
Henry?
question for the PAC chair, Peter. So as I'm looking at the adjustments across positions, is this like an average of about 5% in the position adjustments, or?
So it's hard to say because of the classifications.
Okay.
So some step increases, and you can see on the sheet, thank you for projecting that.
Yeah.
It's going to vary based upon how many years an employee has been in the position. And of course, please fact check me here. This is your department. So it really does vary by position. Do I have this correct?
I have some that are brand official or associates that might be at the 0 level, and they go all the way up to the 25-year level. Like start at about the 8-year level and go up to the 25-year level.
And our salary grid system compensates people at a higher level based on the seniority they have.
Yes.
In Monroe County government.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Looking over here, Councilor Deckert.
I appreciate very much reading in a packet and seeing a recommendation from PAC where we have a vote, how that vote went, and what PAC's doing. And I say that, and I throw the blame to me in the past when I was PAC chair. I wish I'd done this because I think it's just clear. PAC did this. Here's PAC saying where this is at. I think we've gotten into a business in some recent years for a lot of variety of good reasons. There's always a good reason in a moment to do something, but in retrospect, I think it became problematic where PAC would kind of send off some work to council, and council might send some stuff back. And I think more doing and less sending in that sense. I do know that this is a significant commitment and portion to it, but it looks like we have been in the works of figuring that out since around October or so. Is that appropriate? And then based on some initial feedback I've heard from individuals that might be affected by this, I think this has been in a discussion item for some time. I think the judge and I even talked at various iterations when I was liaison. So I appreciate the diligence in getting this here and plan to vote for this here shortly.
Thank you. Anybody?
I mean, I can just say it's, if you read through the packet, you can see the reflection as a member of PAC kind of, how we went about this, I think. But I am in favor of this, and we'll just say the same thing that I think has been emphasized, which is that this has been in the works for a long time. This was, as a new member to PAC, my intent is to kind of follow through with the work that has already been invested in. And so that's why am not balking at the fiscal impact on this one at all.
All right.
Madam President, I have a question. Being one of the new people sitting here since, I guess, what we're calling a long time, is there a number on what a long time is? I mean, has it been a year, or has it been several years of discussion? Maybe I'll go back out this way. I've heard a long time mentioned. How long have we been at the adjustment here?
These job descriptions, we did start, it was about September, I think September, October is
Of 24.
2024.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. And I see Counselor Hawk is joined, and she has her camera on. Hello. You're muted. Okay. Yeah, Counselor Wiltz.
Well, with respect to the long time, I think I'll clarify what I was saying, because the process is a long one, and at certain points in the process, decisions are made by PAC and various entities to invest more time and money into that process. So time and money was spent updating all of these job descriptions and having them then classified, reviewed and classified. We paid money for that. And I get that I could get on a slippery slope there of, it's got to be okay because we already paid some money there. But with respect to updating job descriptions that sorely needed it because it had been 20 years, I feel it would be remiss to not then act on what the outcome of that was. So that's sort of where I was coming from.
All right. So without any, Counselor Hawk.
Yes, I apologize. I've been waiting on a call from the hospital about my sister. So I missed the part of the conversation. Is the plan to move forward with everything that's in the process and just hope that whatever happens at the state is not going to affect us? Or, I mean, have we thought about what's going to happen if we start adding on to our, and I'm not particularly talking about the one from the court, but whatever is decided at PAC, that's just a PAC decision. It's not the decision by the county, because the PAC is only the recommending body, but the fiscal is always supposed to come back to the county council. And because the court was so long waiting, and I don't mean that it was court's fault, to get all this back, then I can see that it should have really happened during budget time. So this is a conundrum.
Yeah, and I think that's understood. I think the sentiment is that because this has been in the pipeline for a while, and no fault to the courts here for what it is that they're trying to do here, is that PAC recommended, and then of course it comes to the full council for us to, decide on PAC's recommendations. So I understand the fiscal impact. I understand this isn't something that was just, magically alakazam, wallazoo, wave a wand, and it's, on our agenda here. I think this is definitely something that's in the works, and I think we can justify, because this has been in the works for a while, that this is something that is needed. So I'll say that. All right. Yes, Councilor Henry.
Thank you, Madam President. I wanted to maybe just reflect on what Councilor Hawk mentioned, and of course what you just did as well. I think where my mindset is of course we honor the work that's been done, the research that's been done, the structure that's been done. I think it's important to just say, if other departments are watching and seeing a significant increase in a budget, and thinking, well, gosh, if that's the standard in light of SB1 and discussions in Indianapolis, in my view, those are apples and oranges conversations because of the work that's been done to make the case for this line item this evening. And so I know that's maybe a hard message sometimes to see if someone's watching and catching a conversation that suggests that, the number before us, which is in the 6 figures, is somehow available to all departments, because that seems to be the sentiment of council at this point. I would just be cautious to say the work must be done from each department in the manner which Councilor Wiltz described. So it's more of a cautionary statement to not presume that this is our comfort level at this moment. This is a case in time with good information before us, weighing this case before us. Thank you.
Duly noted. All right.
Madam President?
Yes.
I'd like to explain my vote before I take it. I really think it is time for a pause on any additional expenditures, even filling empty slots, and wait and see what's happening at the state. Now, we know that there's been a major change just today on that Amendment 17 with Senate Bill 1, but there's still going to be a lot of changes. And I regret that the court is sort of caught right in the middle of it, because this should have already happened and been a part of the budget hearings. However, I'm going to find it very difficult to vote for anything that will continue down the spending pattern that we might not have the revenue to cover. So I just wanted to share that.
Sure. And that is also duly noted. Councilor Decker.
I hate to come back and talk. I did want to say to the judge while she's here, and we're always honored that you are here. I know that you have tremendous respect around the state and a lot of authority, and I would never presume to tell judge communication to our state house folks. But as far as judges are talking with all of our friends in Indianapolis about the effects of proposed legislation and potential cuts, we need as much help as we can get to avoid all that, because some of the early fiscal impacts are so tremendous, it's beyond belief. And I know that the courts are affected by that, and I know that your folks pay attention to that too, but any discussions the judges can have with our legislative friends to assist us in that messaging is always appreciated, Judge.
In response to that, I would say that since the beginning of the year, I've been at 3 different state committee meetings, and in all 3 of those meetings, we have discussed the budget, and we have discussed what is happening across the state. So I appreciate your statement, Councilman Deckard, and I can assure you that those conversations are indeed happening and will continue to happen.
Okay. All right. Seeing no other comments, we will go forward with public comment. If you have a public comment on this item, please come to the lectern here in the Nat U Hill room or raise your hand via Teams. And seeing none, may we please have a roll call vote?
Councilor Iverson?
Yes.
Councilor Fidel?
Yes.
Councilor Hawk?
No.
Councilor Wiltz?
Yes.
Councilor Henry?
Yes.
Councilor Crossley?
Yes.
Councilor Deckard?
Yes.
Motion passed 6-1.
And now we move on to item C.
Council, I move to open for discussion the court's request to update the deputy court administrator and simultaneously amend the 2025 salary ordinance effective February 9th, 2025.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. And I'm also going to look to, in addition to Judge Dekoff and Ms. Abraham, Ms. Mosier from our council office for an explanation on this, because the understanding is that this was a negative recommendation.
Yes, so at the PAC meeting on the 4th, we received the WIS memo that did not increase the deputy court administrator's classification. During conversation about that, it was expressed that there was concern whether the amount of people reporting to this individual was clear within the job description. It was within the organizational chart, and the job description was written in a way that it could be interpreted. The personnel was being assigned only in the court administrator's absence, but upon further conversation with the department, we realized that they're actually working with in charge of these personnel all the time. So Ms. Turner-King and I spoke with WIS on Friday following the meeting just to clarify how they interpreted the job description to that job duty. And they, after reviewing it, agreed that the amount of people reporting to them would justify the position being moved to an EXE-A rather than a Pat D. So the negative recommendation from PAC was regarding the Pat D recommendation from WIS. And so now that we have more information, the request would be an EXE-A.
And looking at the chair of PAC, Mr. Iverson.
Before I begin, would either of you two like to say anything about this?
Yes, I would, and that we appreciated after we went to PAC that when we had conversation about the duties of the deputy court administrator, that after that discussion that Ms. Turner-King at the request of, or the agreement of Councilman Iverson and Councilwoman Wiltz talked to WIS. This was the only position we had that was not elevated, and what we put in the job description was that it was the court administrator position's duties and the deputy's duties, and the concern was that WIS had not looked at that, and our belief is that when Ms. Turner-King talked to them that it was not, because then they elevated that position. So yes, we are asking, hoping that you will approve this recommendation from WIS as well now, that she be elevated to, and really this is one that I think is a Star Wars designation. I know we say it wrong, but to that classification.
I think the judge kind of sums it up. I put a lot of duties on my deputy court administrator, and I couldn't do it without that position. I don't no matter who's in that spot, but yes, she covers me, and I don't worry about it when I'm not there.
And to that point, Ms. Mosier, could you once again put up page 89 of the packet so that we can illustrate just exactly what's happening here? What we're going to be looking at is the deputy court administrator. It's going to be smack dab in the middle of your screen. And look at all the arrows pointing to that position. That's a lot of arrows going to one position, and that's what WIS missed. So this isn't a situation where we're saying, well, we're going to waffle on a position. This is us getting better at our job, making sure that WIS is looking at everything, which includes an org chart that shows a lot of arrows going to one person.
Councilor Decker?
Well, one thing that we have said over the years is that WIS is not infallible, and that we have looked at PAC particularly, that does a strong job of looking at these and analyzing pretty vehemently along with departments. But we've had moments in the past, particularly in the last year, with our election administrator position, and I believe there was one other that is escaping my memory right now, where we had to come in, point some things out, and then make some additional determinations, which is our role. The assessor's office, yes. I would love to know the hours I spent on that just in a minor role, and I think Councilor Iverson rented a house down there. He was down there so long in the assessor's office. But ultimately, that's our job. We signed up for that, but I think this might be one of those type situations.
Councilor Wiltz?
I'm sorry that I wasn't listening closely. Did the motion include the new recommendation, or was the motion to keep it at the same?
The motion was to open for a discussion. So at some point, if we're going to take action tonight, a new motion will need to be made.
Thank you for clarifying that. I was the one who kind of made the motion in PAC to have a negative recommendation to council, and I believe my wording was, with the caveat, or that this is looked at, because those arrows are exactly what caught our attention in the PAC meeting and started to really raise the question, maybe this wasn't accurately categorized. So at this point, I think it's fair to say that for this member of PAC, I would have changed that recommendation to agree, to forward this with a classification to EXE rather than keeping it at PAT. So I'll just make a motion then if that's okay, unless we need further discussion around that.
Councilor Henry?
I have more of a clarifying question than a comment on that. So, and again, just claiming rookie status here for a few more weeks. Is it customary for WIS to have a span of control of 5 to 7 FTEs, like on a position like that? I mean, I just holistically, because I'm counting the squares, and there's quite a few reportees to the position. If that's what's triggering the conversation about the level, but is that typical for a WIS report out to not? I mean, I'm just kind of curious. To have that many direct reports to a position of that level in other departments in the county, is that typical? And I ask that of anybody that can answer that. But
let me take the first stab at this, and then I'll look to others to help out. Number one, we rely heavily on our departments to structure their departments based upon the needs they have. As you can imagine, a courts department in Monroe County is going to be very different than a courts department in another county. And so that's why I think it's important to, of course, hear from folks when they're talking about this so that we know exactly what's happening. I have all the faith in the world that if you think that that person can handle that many reports, more power to them, and we'll help make that happen. I don't, to answer Councilmember Henry's question, I don't believe that there is a WIS standard setting a minimum or a maximum on the number of reports to a certain position, but I have been known to be wrong before.
Councilor Wiltz?
So WIS does not share the exact magical formula that they use. I shouldn't call it magical, that's rude. Because they use a formula. They use a system for factoring, and it's all points-based. And they request certain pieces of information when they are going to be asked to review a position. The job description is one of them, and the other is this organizational chart so that they can look at the role this position is playing vis-a-vis others in the department. And it just, I can't remember the exact conversation and how it went, but it became clear that that many reports is probably something they just didn't look at because it wasn't pointed out explicitly in the job description. It said that it covered that supervisory duty that also fell to the court administrator, but it wasn't inaccurate. It just didn't emphasize the fact that this happened every single time the court administrator left the office and went down the hall practically, because there was that much going on and that rate of interaction. So that's, feel free to correct me, but that's my recollection, is that we just started thinking, I want to make sure that WIS is saying, no, we're not going to move this position up, knowing how many reports they had. And sure enough, it looks like that conversation led to a clarification.
No, thank you for that, and indulging the question. This is not a commentary on the work you've put here. I think this is more about our reliance upon a vendor that is proposing a state-of-the-art and looking at class and comp through SHRM and other tools to tell us what they think the square peg and round hole is versus what you're actually telling us in the room, how it works in this county. So it's more of maybe a commentary for how we work with our vendor there. So no, I agree with what Councilor said and, of course, what you've put before. So thank you. Yeah.
All right. Any other comments? Yes, Ms. Mosier.
I just wanted to mention that in front of you counselors, I've printed out the fiscal impact for this position if we do move it to an EXEA. Unfortunately, since we just got this information this afternoon that we shared, I didn't have time to include it in the packet, but the total for this position to be moved to an EXEA for the remainder of the year would increase $12,138.
Okay. No, I just want to make sure, since I know Councilor Hawk is online, that you indeed heard that number that Ms. Mosier just stated.
Right, I did. And just as if anybody's been following what's going on at the state, one of the things that they're working very hard to do is to try to get the state to take over a lot of these expenses from the court. And to that end, we better hope some of that happens, because if this revenue is cut coming into Monroe County government, we cannot continue to expand as we are doing yet this evening.
Understandable. Yeah. All right. Councilor Iverson? Or
Okay,
All right,
I'll make a motion. I can do this. I can do big things. Council, I move that we accept I think we already did, a revised job description for the deputy court administrator and amend the 2025 salary ordinance to reflect a change in classification from Pat D exempt to EXEA exempt in the previously read lines.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion from council regarding this motion? We'll move forward to the public comment. If you have a public comment on this item, please come forward to the lectern here in the Nat U Hill room or raise your hand via Teams. And see no takers for either. May we please have a roll call vote?
Councilor Feidel?
Yes.
Councilor Henry?
Yes.
Councilor Welts?
Yes.
Councilor Hawk?
No.
Councilor Iverson?
Yes.
Councilor Crossley?
Yes.
Councilor Deckard?
Yes.
Motion passed 6-1.
I want to tell you all how much I appreciate your time, how much I appreciate your consideration, and how much we do recognize the difficult decisions that you have to make and the difficult decisions you're going to have to continue to make. And we appreciate working together with you in this county, because I really do believe we have one of the best county governments that there are in this state. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate that. All right.
Good.
All right. We are going, I know our agenda says meet and recess, but we only have a few more items that are on the agenda. So I think that we, for the sake of time, if there are no objections and if people need to step away for bio breaks, I hope you would do so. But I think we can move on. All right. I'm seeing some head nods here. So we are going to move on to number 11 in the agenda, which is from the Parks Department.
Council, I move to approve the Parks Department request in Fund 1000-0803, General Fund Parks, for an additional appropriation of $100,000 in the services category.
Second.
Got a motion and a second? Ms. Whitmer, you can, whichever one you feel comfortable in, state your case.
Excellent. I know we have new counselors on board, so let me give you some history so you understand what's going on. We came up with this project probably during COVID. It is a brand new restroom at Flatwoods Park with ADA accessibility issues to take care of, and also improvement of the basketball court, and to renovate a basketball court into 3 pickleball courts. So And the thing is that Flatwoods Park's about 200 acres. We have a brand-new playground. The parking lot's full all the time in the summer. It's over by Ellettsville. It's a very popular park. We're redoing everything there. So the need for a restroom was paramount because we had no running water. So we thought during COVID, people might want to wash their hands, flush the toilet, do all those good things that people want to do at parks and privacy there. And we had pit toilets. So it was decided that we're going to do this project. Well, when the bids came in, this was right after COVID, and all the supply chains were going all over the place. We miscalculated, and we needed additional funds. We did come to the county council in 2024 for an additional appropriation of $100,000 with the promise that that $100,000 was going to be reimbursed by the 2024 bond. Well, which it is. But in 2024, we were instructed by, and I can't recall if it's the auditor's office or not, that we were not going to encumber any funds. Well, we didn't start the project, so we still had our funds. And the best thing, it was decided amongst the auditor's office, council office, and I believe Councilor Wiltz was involved in this, is that we had $200,000 in our contractual line. $100,000 was your additional appropriation, and the other $100,000 was from our parks budget from County General. That equals $200,000. We reverted it back to County General in December of 2024. Fast forward, now we're in 2025, we have access to $100,000 from the 2024 bond. But we're now asking for the $100,000 that we gave back to you in December so we can continue this project, which we are under contract in. I know that might be a little confusing, but we gave you $200,000.
You want it
Okay.
back.
Seems pretty simple, I would think, but
yeah.
maybe not to some.
Okay.
I don't want to make assumptions because we know what happens when we assume. All right. Any questions or comments from council? No?
I will just say that, yes, I was involved. and yeah, this is going to be an amazing upgrade for this location. I'm the Parks Department liaison, so as their liaison, I'm fully supportive of the project and the the accounting thereof.
I guess I just had one quick question about the project. How many, I guess, stalls does this come with?
This is a prefab restroom, and we've done these before. It is 4 huge accessible restrooms. So it's privacy. So it's 4, anyone can use them. We do have a lot of weddings out at Flatwoods. So we have a lot of bridal parties. So there'll be plenty of room. Or if you use a wheelchair or a walker, or you have to help someone, there's going to be plenty of room in each of these. So back to your answer, 4 stalls.
Got it.
And we are putting 1 urinal in one of them. Awesome. And all baby changers, of course.
That was going to be my next question.
Oh, yeah.
Because I know that I am past that point of babies in my life. But those that might not, I wondered about that because especially both, everybody can change babies. So, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, anyone can use any of the restrooms, or, any gender can use the restrooms, shut the door, lock it.
Good.
We are really excited with this because, as I said, they were flush toilets with running water to wash your hands.
Right. All right. Seeing no other comments or questions from council, I'll move on to public comment. If you have any. Oh,
Councilor Hawk
Yeah,
had her
I'm
hand
so
raised.
sorry. So sorry, Councilor
I
Hawk.
see where I can raise that hand.
So sorry.
I just wanted to comment that as a frequent user of this particular park, it has a lot of heavy usage. We have different clubs that go there, Sunday school parties. The cars just pull in, and suddenly the place is just full of young people just running and enjoying the day. And it is difficult before, when what they had for a restroom, there was no water. And so we know how that worked. So, and because this had already been started, this isn't like something new. This is already started. You have to get it finished. And the parks put the money back into the kitty, and now they want it back into their pocket so they can pay this bill. Kudos to you, Kelly, and all that your team does.
Thank you, Marty.
We were at public comment, right? Okay, all right. Just want to make sure. So anybody that wants to make public comment about this item, please come forward to the Nat U Hill room, the microphone here in the Nat U Hill room, or raise your hand via Teams. And seeing none, may we please have a roll call vote?
Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Counselor Crossley?
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz?
Yes.
Counselor Feidel?
Yes.
Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Counselor Hawk?
Yes.
Counselor Henry?
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, Flatwoods.
All right. Now we are moving on to item number 12.
Council, I move to approve the Convention and Visitors Commission's request in Fund 1127-0000 Convention Visitor Tourism Fund for an additional appropriation of $500,000 in the capital category.
Second?
Yes.
We need a second.
Oh, second.
Oh, thank you. All right, thank you. We got a motion and a second. I see Mr. Mike Campbell. Hello.
Hi there, how are you? Thanks for having us tonight. So here tonight, we're requesting approval for the creation of a new account for the support of the Karst Athletic Turf Project out at Karst Farm Park. This amount was originally appropriated and approved in early 2024, but those funds weren't expended in 2024. And I don't know if anybody else has done construction in any way, shape, or form, but those things tend to take a little extra time. And so we're here to ask for that to be reappropriated in this line item created in our 2025 budget. So just a reminder, all of the funds that are coming and are going to be appropriated for this come directly from the innkeeper's tax, and so no Monroe County dollars are expended in that way. And this project falls in line perfectly with our commitment to tourism development in Monroe County, as well as benefiting the community.
All right, and I'm going to go to see Councilor Hawk has her hand raised on Teams. So, Councilor Hawk, the floor is yours.
Yes, I just love it when we're spending the visitors' money instead of our local money for these projects. And I just thank you for working with us and allowing the county to have dollars that, and it really will benefit tourism as well. So kudos, great teamwork. Thank you.
Great partnership.
Any other questions or comments from council? Councilor Iverson?
So we've been talking about this for a long time. We've been talking about those field updates, and of course, we've all been getting phone calls from families that are trying to play soccer on flooded fields and yada yada and all this stuff, fun stuff. But you know, a lot of the projects that we're hearing about happening include not only drainage and irrigation, but also turf and light construction, the electrical engineering, the synthetic turf fields and all that. Is this appropriation going to be addressing all of those, some of those? What exactly, where are we at on kind of this process and et cetera?
Thankfully, I have the expert right next to me, who's our point person.
I was going to be surprised if you had an answer to that question.
We have a lot of funds that we're drawing from, but most likely their $500,000 will go directly to the turf fields.
Okay. And can I ask a follow-up? Sure. where are we at in the process of installing those turf fields and getting them ready for spring soccer or other sports to use them?
The fences for construction went up this week. Since we added a third turf field, now we're moved back to probably the 3 turf fields will be available, if nothing bad happens, around mid-August. But we also have to take the other fields that are getting drainage and irrigation out earlier. So we'll be out 6 fields for maybe a month, which has never happened to us. So we're asking all our users to help us to make sure everyone fits. And we're also replacing it with sod on field 6 and 7, which means if everything goes well, we might be playing all 6 fields by the spring of next year. The turf fields will be played immediately the day they finish them in August of this year. So as soon as they're done, you can play the next day.
That's exciting. All right, so you heard it here first. Book your tournament in Monroe County for 2026. Stay in our hotels, eat at our fantastic restaurants.
And we have been meeting with Visit Bloomington, and we've been discussing exactly that. You know, we've been talking about lacrosse, we've been talking about soccer. There's always Quidditch, you know.
But you don't use the turf so much on Quidditch.
It comes and goes, you know. But we've been working very closely with Visit Bloomington, and that's our goal, is to bring tournaments in and to serve the local kids.
This is great. This is great.
Councilor Wiltz had her hand up, and then we'll go to Councilor Deckard.
Yeah, Councilor Wiltz kind of forgets what she was going to say, because I think I was going to ask about an update on where we were with the project and sharing that. But truly, I couldn't be more supportive of this project. Really excited. My kids are finished for the most part playing on the local fields, and we have one more lacrosse season, but even that now is high school. So
now we do have a very popular adult rec league, so
Yeah.
you may come on out and we can just
I'll cheer. I'll just come on out and I will cheer everyone on, because that's my role. But I will say that it's going to be really amazing to see the transformation, and it has been a long time coming. So, congratulations.
I do want to thank, they've been very supportive. We could not have done this without them. So kudos to you all, and also Jeff McKim, who was here earlier. He has been pushing this for 10 years, I think.
I want to join the chorus of thank yous and say it's awesome to see when people see beyond their department, they see beyond kind of their immediate need and their vantage point to get the picture of what makes a truly strong community. And so both of you being here, that's kind of a refreshing thing. I almost want to take a picture of that and put it up in our council office, because if we saw that a little bit more often, I think it would remind us of some of the great pairings that happen. And this community is truly built on people that kind of get it and they see it. And I know that you both are not only of that reputation, but you have it. I do want to say there was a time, and I think I've said this before in meetings, this was the #1 issue I got talked to about. And one time I made the mistake of being, you know, when you're dealing with jail locations and post-pandemic and money that you have and don't have and job descriptions, there can be a time that, you know, you could get a little bit flippant on other issues. And I made the mistake of being a little bit too lighthearted on karst fields with a constituent who pinned my ears back pretty hard. For parents, this one's a big one. And I hope that as this comes to fruition and as we see it, we kind of celebrate us being able to do the hard things that we've done, and certainly the way that this is coming. And thank you for getting it. And if people don't know what that means, well, they could come ask you all about that, but it's a big picture thing, and that's truly what this is all about.
Councilor Henry.
I'll just be brief. Karst Farm Park is the closest to my house, and my kids absolutely love it. And thank you for all the work you do out there and this great improvement. I can't really improve on what anyone else has said. So
Well,
Yeah.
the park staff has a lot to do with it. They work extremely hard.
Yeah. And I will echo in those sentiments because there's nothing else that needs to be said for me that our council members haven't said. So we appreciate all the work you're doing. All right. And local tourism matters. That's it. I'll say that. All right. Public comment. It is now time for you. If you have something to say about this item, please come forward to one of the microphones here in the Nat U Hill room or raise your hand via Teams. And seeing no movement here in the room or any hands raised on Teams, may we please have a roll call vote?
Counselor Henry?
Yes.
Counselor Hawk?
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz?
Yes.
Counselor Feidel?
Yes.
Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Counselor Crossley?
Yes.
Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
Thanks for being here.
All right, we will move on to item number 13 from the Probation Department.
Council, I move to approve the Probation Department's request in Fund 8160-9625 Justice Partners SIM for an additional appropriation of $56,459 in the services category.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second. Mr. Williams, welcome.
Thank you. Coming for you tonight in regards to the grant we've received from the Indiana Office of Court Services since 2019. We've kind of had some reiterations of what we've done with the money, but in 2024 we kind of found a groove, and we're going to continue with that and kind of up that. So what we're doing now is people that are on probation, as you can imagine, one of the hurdles we face, or just in community supervision, is getting them engaged in substance abuse treatment in that warm handoff. So in 2024, we started bringing in Centerstone into our office and doing those intake assessments within our office. They were very successful, and so we're going to expand that into 2025 with this grant fund, doing up to 16 assessments a week in the office.
Oh. All right. That's a lot. And I'm going to start over to my left, and I see you here. So, Counselor Wiltz.
Okay, so the one question I had when I read this was, are 16 assessments enough? But to be honest, I literally thought it was 16 assessments for the entirety of the contract. And I was like, I have like written here, is this meeting the need? I can't imagine. So, awesome. I'm very, very glad to see that's what it is. So, yeah, that's all.
Right. Counselor Iverson, and then I also see Counselor Hawk has her hands up.
I'm really happy to hear that this collaboration with Centerstone is working out. I'm really happy to see that it's scaling. Like, that's really fantastic. And I guess I wanted to hear from you, is this meeting the demand, or are we still as a community, I mean, treatment's so hard.
I don't think we'll ever meet the demand. I mean, when we were doing the 8 or 6 a week, we were filled out, instantaneously. So we'll see where we go with this. I will be honest with you, Centerstone doesn't have an employee ready to meet this demand at this, they're short-staffed too. So I'm hoping now that we have the money, that'll spearhead and get rolling. The state was fortunate to let us roll over some funds from last year as well. So I'm hopeful that maybe they'll be able to do that. But we always find ways to use the money even if it's not to Centerstone.
Yeah, this is great. Thanks.
Counselor Hawk.
Yes, it's just, once again, it shows us how much we rely on grants, that we cannot always think that they will be there. So make the best use of those dollars while we have them, and thank you for doing that.
My only question is, I know you mentioned that you work with Centerstone. Is there any other possibility with working with any other agencies in town?
So when we started this, I reached out to numerous providers. Centerstone was the only one willing to step up to the table. I mean, we could reapproach again and see, but it is a big demand to ask an agency to have their employees come into our office. Yeah.
I would think that's shocking to hear that nobody else jump to help. And I would be interested to hear if you did decide to go back around and spin the block and try to get some other takers to see if they would take you up on that offer this time around too. Awesome. Okay. All right. Well, no other further questions here. Yes.
Sorry. Do you track recidivism rates with this grant?
So, no, I mean, they kind of just flow into the recidivism with our normal clients.
Okay.
So any of our clients are eligible to utilize this service.
Okay, all right. Good to know.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thanks.
And again, seeing none, we will move forward to the public comment section here of this item. If you have any comments on this, please come forward to the lectern here in the Nat U. Hill room or raise your hand via Teams. And seeing no movement in this room and no hands raised on Teams, we will move on to a roll call vote.
Counselor Hawk?
Yes.
Counselor Feigl?
Yes.
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz?
Yes.
Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Counselor Henry?
Yes.
Counselor Crossley?
Yes.
Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
Thank you. Appreciate that. We tabled item number 14 on the agenda. So, and again, that item was tabled until February 25th meeting. And we will move on to the last part of our agenda item, which again, I know just for all of us to get used to it, it is now called the Counselor Liaison and Comment section. So we wanted to combine that just to make sure that we're moving our meetings expeditiously and efficiently. So if you have any comments that you would like to make personally and on behalf of your liaisonship, this is your time for you to do so. So I will look to my left and start over here and see. Counselor Deckard?
I am going to offer something, and we obviously have had much discussion about, in the news and otherwise, about potential cuts that came. Even Counselor Hawk said just a moment ago, you know, if cuts to grants happen, the auditor's doing a fine job at assessing that. A moment ago, I did send off a message to our U.S. Senator Jim Banks, and I sent it with the best of intentions to tell him that he had sent an email to all of us about his appointments on subcommittees. And as I was ticking through those subcommittees, and we get these kinds of things all the time, I noticed that most of those subcommittees are dedicated to oversight of defense issues, health issues, retiree issues, all these issues that are really important that Congress deals with. And I said to him that I understand there's a lot going on in Washington, and certainly there always is after an election, there's changes, but there's a lot of people that don't understand what potential changes to grants, changes to federal funding, changes to who works in federal agencies, what that will specifically mean for them when it comes to the programs that they're in, the Social Security they draw, the items that they have. And I offer that simply because there is sometimes glee after an election, but there's a reality when things start to settle in and this turns into other things. And I issued to him that I was concerned about things. So I invited him when he's in Monroe County that I would love to talk with him. And I'd be an open conduit to him on that if he wants to take that up. And I think that this kind of dialogue is going to be incumbent upon all of us. And if people aren't open to that, well, that's a different question. But for now, we've got to have those messages coming. And in a community like this with so many veterans, so many people of need, so many people that depend upon these things, this has got to have to happen. So that was something I did on the spot. I encourage others to contact him so that he's not hearing it, but not just in Monroe County, but beyond, because I think that these are important messages for our federal folks to hear. Thank you.
All right, looking over to my left, or nope, the other left, the right. Counselor Iverson.
Yeah, I just have three quick things to share. Number one, at today's meeting, we heard a lot about PAC transparency, and we're going to continue with that. One of the things we didn't discuss today is that we've been hearing from departments and county staff about ways that they want PAC to be working better for their departments. And to that end, we did discuss a WIS contract that we're going to be working on with our WIS partners. And so I would encourage you to watch the last PAC meeting or get in touch with me or any member of PAC to discuss that. The second item that I want to share is that we've started liaison meetings. Councilmember Henry and I are going to be at the Health Department tomorrow discussing a range of topics as we are liaisons with that department. So as you're looking into February and March, reach out to council members, schedule those liaison meetings. It's a good time to do that. The last thing I wanted to share is that I'm hearing from a lot of people a lot of anxiety about the way that the federal government and the state governments are handling issues, and I just want to encourage the residents of Monroe County that this is a community that cares about its neighbors. This is exactly the right time to be supporting your favorite nonprofit. This is exactly the right time to be supporting the agencies that you value. And if you don't have one, the United Way here in Monroe County is a great place to find some really great agencies doing some really great things. And of course, for those of you that are concerned about issues that go beyond the borders of Monroe County, there are some great organizations that are doing some really wonderful things, and I would look forward to any opportunity to talk with any of you about ways that you can help out. Thank you.
Go ahead, Councilor Henry.
Thank you, Madam President. I have just two general comments and 2 liaison comments for this evening. First, I want to maybe extend upon some of the comments we had during the court reporter discussion about the budget and kind of where we are with activities in Indianapolis. I don't think we can operate too much longer in a vacuum of things that I understand are pipelined from PAC and things that have been decided in the previous year in terms of how departments are working, but there may be a moment, probably sooner than we want to acknowledge, that we need to think about a bit of a strategic pause as we watch what happens in Indianapolis with SB1 when it comes to some of our local decision making. So I want to say tonight that while I honor the work that's been done before I got here, a lot has changed since the swearing in of new officers in the state and Organization Day, that this should give us some thought about that. I mean, I work in emergency management consulting for a living. It would be, I think a betrayal of my profession to not be preparing for potential threats and risks and hazards to our county, and whether they're fiscal or otherwise. And so I really think we need to think through that, especially as we see some of these amendments move through that may put us in positions where we have a growth cap, where we're not able to raise our maximum operating growth cap without going to the public for a referendum to justify additional spending and some of the legislation that's moving through. And so I know it's a moving target. It's hard to see past that when making decisions in this room as we move forward. Secondly, I wanted to say, while I wasn't a liaison to the Public Defender's Office in January, and I'm not either, I neglected to bring this up at the last meeting, that when we had our really bad freeze, our Public Defender's Office had frozen pipes for about 24 hours. They didn't have running water in that building, and yet we're still open. And that came by way of, I found out about that from staff that had called me, and I know that eventually the building department got that building back up and running. But as I think about SB1 and the impacts on our budget and the things that still need to be fixed by capital in the county, like when we need to prove it to the State House, the cost of doing business in Indiana and Monroe County, of inflationary pressures on fixing pipes and getting buildings open, like we can prove it just in the crumbling of some of our infrastructure. And we really need to make those cases. So when, the pipes freeze at the PD and we can't, people that are trying to meet with their public defender can't use the bathroom there, like I can prove the case for why we need the revenue that we're asking for from the public to help sustain their government. And so those are things I think we need to collect and prepare to make those cases as to why we need that revenue here. In terms of my liaison work, I want to highlight that the Emergency Management Agency is collecting comment from the community for the hazard mitigation plan for the county. You can access that on the county website and email our emergency management director on commentary. What does that mean? Well, the Herald Times had a good article on that recently. It talks about how wildfire might be a more likely hazard we can experience in our community, especially with the result of climate change, drying out our summers and falls. And so if you are wanting to think ahead about how to prepare for that kind of thing, you should give commentary and be a part of the conversation about how you can be personally prepared, as well as helping our county think ahead on those activities. And lastly, I'll just say I wanted to thank the council for my appointment to the Plan Commission as liaison. We did have a good start to our administrative meeting last week. I'm happy to report back that we were able to retain the county council seat on the executive committee as they consider fiscal decisions. Of course, much of our planning and zoning decisions in the next year are going to be looking at the question about how we improve our parcels to raise the revenue we need to run this government. And so thank you for that appointment. That's all. Thank you.
Councillor Hawk.
Yes, I've been in conversation with the Sheriff's Department as well as the jail. I know there was some concern about the amount of comp time that had been building up, and as a response, and we're supposed to be getting something in writing as well. You might already have it, but they've had to deal with, as many of our departments have, with they hire somebody and perhaps they leave and somebody has to work in with the training or fill the slot. And they've had also some illnesses where some folks are having to pick up the slack. And so that has caused, in a department that large, that you can't just walk away from those duties. So somebody had to put in the time there. Also with the assessor's office, of course, so much is going on at the state level that affects the assessor's office. And so we've been in conversation back and forth about the different, some of the things going on at the state level having to do with our assessments as well. And so it's always a pleasure to talk with those folks to see what's going on at the state that we might be able to assist with positive suggestions at the state level. And having to do with that, of course, you know, that's what I do this time of the year. I'm on that legislative committee. And so this morning, making sure I was online with them at 8 o'clock this morning with the tax and fiscal, when Senator Holman made it clear that the first thing they discussed was Senate Bill 1, and that they had, in working with the governor's office, that they wanted to, while they wanted to work well together, they wanted to make sure that at all times they recognize their need to work with local governments as well, and at the same time do what they can for local folks and the problems with the tax burdens, and especially so with those over 65 and with the disabled veterans. Now, if you've watched any of the presentations to the tax and fiscal, one of the things that made the biggest difference was the older folks that went to speak about their own personal situations. So when you want somebody to go to the state to represent what their thoughts are, it really does. They listen very closely to the individuals, even more so than the larger groups. So I mean, kudos to the people who are just putting in so many hours trying to do the right thing. They love county government. For people who think they don't, you're just wrong. They want to work with us. We want to work with them. But we also have to recognize that we're representing the people of this community and of the state. So it's an exciting time, but sort of scary. So at any rate, I just wanted to give those thoughts to you this evening.
Okay. All right. Thank you. As chair, I get the pleasure of closing it out. So like to do it. Here it goes. First of all, I would like to say, in terms of council liaisons, I know the auditor's office sent out a comp update sheet, and so I just ask for all council members who see that, and if you are a liaison to that particular department, to please work with your department to figure out what's happening and what's going on there, because just as much as we keep talking about the cuts that we have to do, that is also something that we need to, you know, take knowledge to and try to figure out how we can keep our costs down before we have to go to other levels in our FAFO government standing right now. The other thing that I would like to say in terms of the liaisonship is if you, just as I heard Councilors Henry and Iverson, and I know Councilors Hawk and Wilt are the liaisons to the sheriff and Jill. And if we have multiple people that are on liaisonships to work together, let us, anybody can pick up the phone and try to figure out what's happening, what's going on. But I do ask for all of us to continue to work together so we don't feel like we are one council member left behind. So I'm making all the government puns tonight. So that being said, I know we talked about it earlier, and Councilor Henry touched on this a little bit too with the court reporters and then all of those classification changes. I will say that I can go to bed and I will sleep well tonight, knowing that that was something that was coming down the pike, and that was something that was being worked on. I will also recognize the fact of what Councilor Henry said and Councilor Hawk said, that maybe it's time for us to have that conversation of what it means and what it looks like to figure out what our next measures are as we keep an eye and watch what our fellow friends at the State House are doing right now, because ultimately, we know that there have been some changes in regards to SB1, and we all want to take a deep dive and take a look into it, but I think we need to have that larger conversation. But we can have that larger conversation on February 21st, starting at 2:00 p.m. here in the Nat U. Hill Room with the Long-Term Finance Committee. So thank you. So just really interested to hear what they have to say. And last but not least, just to kind of lighten up the mood, because every day, every 20 minutes, it seems like we get an alert for breaking news. And I just also want to say a huge shout out to our staff, Courtney Mosier and Aubrey and auditor staff, as well as Ms. Turner King. We have some absences that are happening in offices, and we all know that it is a very demanding job, and all 7 of us have like 20 different personalities. So you gotta figure out how to navigate all of that. I'm just kidding. Not really. But that being said, we just appreciate all the things that you're trying to do. It's not an easy task. Rome wasn't built in a day. And so we just have to make sure that we are practicing gratitude and patience and giving that to you as well. So we just appreciate anybody that is helping out in the council office right now with some absences that we have going on. And last but certainly not least, you may try to wipe it away from all avenues of calendars or wipe it off from anything, websites, whatever, but as a person that stands here or sits here before you, I would like to say it is the 11th day of February, and not only is it a day of, or the month of love, it is also a month of gratitude for folks that look like me. So I would just like to say you can take it away as much as you want, or not try to acknowledge it, but we are still here. I'm still here, and I would just like to say Happy Black History Month. There are lots of things that are happening in the community, and I recommend anybody, the city of Bloomington is doing really good work. I know they had a kickoff about a week or so ago here, but it is the shortest month, but it is a month that we still recognize Black excellence and a lot of things that, again, my ancestors did, because we built some of this stuff for free. So without that, without anything else to be said, we are adjourned. Thank you.